Hi, everyone, and welcome to our podcast today. We are very fortunate to be joined by mridangam Vidwan Sumesh Narayanan. Sumesh, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm good, guys. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very well.
Just for the record, these guys are doing the intro after they spoke to me for an hour, so just so you guys know that.
We've been baited out.
Tell us about the relationship with your own guru, how that sort of came about, and your early experiences.
My mother sings, and she used to be really active during the 90s. She's actually trained in classical music. She was under Vedavaliyamma. She was also on and off with Carnatic concerts, performances. But we were in Bombay at that time, and she was quite active in the light music field. And she was singing a lot of songs with orchestras, with bands, and all that. So she used to take me to all of these shows. Obviously, I was an infant. What she remembers of it is that I used to go, I was always drawn towards the rhythm section in the orchestra. And then, you know how there's a huge buffet of instruments on the stage. And then I used to be drawn towards the tabla, literally just, filled with all the instruments there. And then I think that's when she started to understand that I fancied rhythm instruments. And so fast forward, we also moved to Chennai after a bit. I was about 8 or 9 years, 2000. So every season, like the usual South Indian household, every season we go Sabha hop. One such Sabha was called Nayaki. I don't know if you guys are aware of that. So Nayaki used to literally happen behind my house. So we had this really good friend, family friend of ours called Ramana Balachandhran, who used to host Nayaki. So they had a huge house, and the backyard used to be converted into it's like a collapsible shamiana. One such concert was Shankar Narayanan sir. One of those years, I think 2000, one of those days was Shankar Narayanan sir, accompanied by Bhaktavatsalam sir, who was not, I wasn't his student yet. During the Tani, I come to the first row and start mimicking, playing the mridangam on the water bottle, and I start putting the talam and all that. And he's constantly, watching me throughout the Tani. He looks at me, he's like, who's this kid? And after the concert's over, he calls me to him, and he's like, mridangam vaasipiya? I'm like, Illa sir, I don't play mridangam, but I really wish I could learn. Or something more juvenile. I was 8. So mom came running, she obviously thought I had done something really, really wrong. And I was quite notorious when I was young. So she came running, and she's like, so sorry, sir, I don't know what you... Wait. I want to talk to you about something entirely different. What I hear he's very interested in all you want to say. Are you in Chennai? Are you new to Chennai? Basically just introductions. And then he flashes his card, and he was like, why don't you come see me tomorrow morning? And then next morning we go to his place, we call him. He said, yeah, come over. I remember, just come over. And then I go to his place. He asks me, he was just getting done with his puja and all that. And he asks me to bring a mat, bring a couple of mridangams, and the first lesson. That's all. There's nothing more to it. There was nothing more to it. And my mother's quite perplexed there. She's like, okay, what's happening? So is that, okay, that was a first class. Okay. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I mean, I feel only right saying this. For a long time, he never accepted fees or whatever we offered to him. He always claimed that when I ask you for fees, you give me. As long as I don't ask you, you don't have to bring it up. I asked you to come, I started the class, and that ends the topic. And we'll have classes every weekends if that's okay with you. So you can just continue coming. And that's it. That was in 2000. That was July 8, 2000. It was a Sunday. So I think since then, yeah.
We've been going 20 years now.
Yeah, 20 years. My first love is Carnatic music. My identity is Carnatic music. But since I also grew up in, a Christian school, and I started playing the guitars sometime down the line in school, and I used to sing a lot of carols and all that. So I also grew up listening to a lot of rock, a lot of pop, and a lot of funk. And so I started singing with these bands from school. And then, I sing, I have a very Western approach to singing, but now and then I have this, this Indian leash that doesn't let me go. So it sort of pulls me once in a while. But I have a very hybrid style of singing.
You had the privilege of starting with the very senior Vidwan from the basics, which, a lot of people say is like a blessing, because, you've got 20 years to learn under Bhaktu sir. So how was the process under him, and what was he like as a guru? Were you aware of how senior he was when you started, and, were you nervous? How did it go in terms of the classes?
So I also have to mention one very, very important person in my growth and in how I, became a musician and how I was tutored as a musician. Sriram, Delhi Sriram, who's Sir's one of Sir's senior disciples. And to me, I've always thought about it. It's funny why you should ask this question, because Bhaktu sir was always like a dad to me. Like, I would just talk to him like I would to, my dad or my mom, or just like, I know I'm going to get like psyched after, but I don't care. I'm just going to like talk. I can't like not say this to him. Like, I have to go and tell him. But the best part was, even with the Kappi talk, when I went to Sir Sriram and told him, you know what, I'm going to ask sir if I can start playing in Kappi. And Sriram was like, what the hell is wrong with you, dude? Do you want to like, he's probably going to belt the living hell out of you. So he thought of, he sort of thought that sir was going to like, go berserk. He's just going to. But when I went to sir, I told him, sir, I have something to ask you. And he's like, hold on. And it was as simple as I can put it. I was like, see, I want to play Kappi mridangam. I sort of, developed this interest. He's like, oh yeah, Kappi mridangam? Yeah, go for it. And I'm like, yeah, what? Yeah, that's it. And he's like, yeah, I mean, but don't like change all of it to all of your mridangams to Kappi like immediately. Try and understand how you feel about it with you, because wanting to play on one is totally different from playing on one. And, the maintenance that's associated with it. There's a lot of things. Think about it. I mean, it didn't work for me. So I just stuck with Kucchi. And I think Kucchi Mridangathila Andoru Saukyam, I've always felt that, that's just my opinion. I've always felt that that's just, unmatchable. But if you're free to do what you want, man, like you need to play to understand. You can't really talk about it, have a conversation about it and arrive at a conclusion. You just need to spend time with it. He was so practical about it, dude. And for someone like him, and also his position, I understand he's a guru, right? It would have been very easy for him to say, no, you don't, and you will listen to me. Because sometimes it's also right to do that, because as a teacher, you have to sort of guide your student. Even with all of the guru sishya, boundaries and guru sishya, I don't even know if there are boundaries between a guru and a sishyan, but I'm saying even with all those rules and regulations and these fences that you have, I think to me Bhaktu sir is not just a guru. I simply have to just walk into the room with him there and I'd feel good already. He has this aura about him. He has this energy that he sort of radiates. Like, he just has to walk into a room, just ask you a few words and you'd be fine, man. You'd just be, oh, this has felt good, dude. This is talking to him. This is fun. That's how sir is. And I felt that every day of my 20 years that I've been with him.
For the sake of the Rasikas that sort of weren't following the anecdotes with the Kucchi and the Kappi, so what's the difference between the two of mridangams, and from basic standpoint, and how do they differ in terms of, how they sound, etc.?
So Kucchi and Kappi, I think the biggest difference is only with the right head of the mridangam. Basically, the right mood. I don't think the tuppi changes very much. It's like, imagine a drum kit and you'd have to just change the snare, but the bass drum it's retained, right? So sort of that. So the Kucchi and the Kappi mridangam, the biggest difference is in the resonance, the sound from that's produced on the right side. And literally in Carnatic, or rather mridangam lingo, Kucchi is literally Kucchi. It means a stick. And in this case, it means it refers to the small sticks that are placed between the top and the bottom membrane on the right side. So if you know the anatomy of the mridangam, on the right side, there are actually 3 skins that are layered on top of each other and then fastened around the barrel. To make the resonance, or to enhance the resonance, there are a few ways that you can do it. Basically, enhance the the resonant frequency that is produced with the strike, right? So one way is to insert these small kuchis, in concentric patterns between the layers of the right mridangam, between the skin membranes of the right mridangam. The other way is called Kappi, because what you use, Kappi refers to that small podi-like thing. It's almost as big as mustard seeds, or in some cases slightly bigger. Is put. Those are sort of put scattered around between the layers, and they are quite intact. They don't. Sometimes they fall out. Sometimes they don't. And as with any instrument, you need to season it. As much as you play, the more you play, the better it gets. So I think that is the biggest difference between a Kucchi and a Kappi mridangam. As for some more technical differences, I think schools of thought that sort of associate themselves with playing in a Kucchi mridangam and playing in a Kappi mridangam are actually quite different. Kappi mridangam is also believed to have been invented by Maniyer himself. I don't know how authentic that is, but I remember reading that somewhere, and apparently he found the Kucchi mridangam was a little too resonant for when he accompanied instruments. So when he was playing for Lalgudi sir, or even Rajamanikam Pillai, or some violin veena concert, Chitti Babu, or some violin veena concert, he felt that the mridangam was a little too intrusive. Not just the content, but the very sound of it. The nadam itself was a little too intrusive, according to him. That was his opinion. So he sort of changed the way it sounded. He sort of changed the resonance, so to speak. So I think he pulled out the Kuchis, or he pulled out the Kuchis partially, and then he put Kappi. It was all, it was all just meddling and trial and error and trying to understand how the sound works. And that is how I believe the Kappi mridangam came into being. But as for playing in a Kucchi mridangam and a Kappi mridangam, it's just two worlds, man. It's because I'm trained in a Kucchi mridangam, or I've been trained in a Kucchi mridangam. Being able to transition into a Kappi was quite tasking. I had to learn a lot of things, and I had to learn it by experience, because nobody can really explain stuff to you. Some people ask me if I can play the tabla because I'm trained in the mridangam. I'm sorry, it's just it's a very stupid question to ask.
Same thing. We were having this discussion with Shriananda the other week, where it was like, people say if you can sing Carnatic, you can sing anything. Well, I wish that were the case, but it's not, because I'd be like Justin Bieber now.
I know. It's just sad, man. I hear people saying that, and no wonder they call us, what they call it, right? I mean, let's face it. You got to stand up for the community as well. You can't just say, no, I didn't say it. She said it. As long as you're part of the fraternity, you own the responsibility to, sort of correct them if that's wrong, and maybe even. I'm just saying, you can't say stuff like that, because as for someone who's been exposed to pop, funk, and jazz for a long time, not to the depths of it as much as I have, put myself through Carnatic music, but obviously to understand the beauty in all of it, and for someone to say, I've been trained in Carnatic music, so I think I can play any other musical form. It's just too arrogant, man, to say something like that. That's not right. First of all, it's not right. And second of all, it's not right.
So, did you ever try a Kappi mridangam before, or only after you asked her?
Only after I asked her.
Okay, so did you have to change, like, just for any percussionists who are listening?
Oh yeah, so if you're experimenting. Style? Oh wait, so are you talking about the mridangam or the way I played?
The way you play, sort of.
Playing style did not change.
Okay.
Honestly, I was playing on the Kappi mridangam as I was on the Kucchi mridangam, but because of the influence that Raghu sir's patterns and Raghu sir's ideologies had on me, and I was a little impatient. I was like, I needed to sound like him. I needed to sound like Ida, and obviously that's not going to happen. If I can go into some more technicality, I think paying attention to more T and touch.
I was just about to say, so in a Kappi mridangam, are you more nam dominant, whereas in a Kucchi mridangam you might use the din and the chapa more?
Oh yeah. But I also feel, because of the Kappi podi between the layers, I think the gap between the layers is more than that of a Kucchi mridangam.
Yes. That's
why
you get like a popping nam.
Yeah, popping nam, exactly. Yeah, and it's also tougher to play the nam, because now that you've increased the gap between the layers, the resonance is also increased, and you sort of have to master the art of controlling the resonance as opposed to really, producing sound. Once someone asked Sriram sir about what the difference was between playing on a Kucchi mridangam and playing on a Kappi mridangam. He said, குச்சி மிருதங்கத்துல வாசிக்கிறதுக்கு வந்து கப்பி மிருதங்கத்துல வாசிக்கிறதுக்கு வந்து சத்தத்தை கொண்டு வர கஷ்டப்படணும். That you have to spend time in bringing out the sound, right? குச்சி மிருதங்கத்துல சத்தத்தை அடக்க முயற்சி பண்ணணும். So you will have to master the art of controlling the sound in a kuchi mridangam and bringing out the sound in a kappi mridangam, because it's extremely hard to bring out the sound in a kappi mridangam, because they also say it involves a little extra physical exertion. On the kuchi mridangam, it's also nice and resonant, right? So you need to understand the microtones involved and the nodes that are involved with certain strokes. And the dim is obviously an overtonal variation of the chapter. So all of that, you start paying attention. It's a beautiful process. I've sort of, moved over to the Kucchi face again.
Okay.
And now I'm playing a lot of Kucchi. I'm playing a lot of, I've been listening to a lot of Sir's younger days. I wanted to know how he was playing when he was as old as I was. I was just curious.
One of the words that comes to mind when I listen to, vintage recordings, like super audio, like quality recordings is balance and the crispness of his solos. Some of the faster solos, you could hear every single little...
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing.
Ridiculous.
I don't know if you guys have discussed about it. I thought that the analog sound system and the amplification these guys had those days was so much more suitable to Carnatic music.
Why do you think that is, Sumesh?
Adish, so pertaining to this era, I think we really should overcome the decibel battle, guys. I really think Carnatic music should stop being staged like a rock concert. Now you're negating the existence of dynamics, right? It's okay if you don't listen to it's okay if you don't hear a certain stroke or hear a certain section of the concert. It was meant to be that way. And now everything is amplified. Everything, my left mridangam mic is almost inside the topi. As a musician, I don't even have to care about dynamics now, because now that you have control over my dynamics. You have control over my dynamics, because you can just pitch it with whatever decibel level you want. And, that's probably why Mani Iyer, refused microphones.
Oh, wow, I didn't know.
One point. Oh, you didn't know that. So Mani Iyer's letterhead used to read, well, obviously Palakkad Mani Iyer on the top right corner. And the footer, within quotes, used to read acceptance of concerts strictly in the absence of microphones.
Wow.
I didn't know that. So all the
Strictly
sound would come
microphones.
through the other mics.
Yeah, that's it. Basically, you cannot amplify his mridangam.
Wow.
You do whatever you want. You talk to your vocalists. They can be ready for anything. No mic is coming near me. I'm playing with my mridangam, and if people want to listen to me, they can come sit next to me. Sit near me, next to me, whatever. But he never used mics.
These single mic concerts are quite popular. A lot of people really like them. So I think this
exactly.
is probably...
And I even went to RK Ramakrishnan, because a single mic concert started in RK Convention Center, and I happened to play a couple of concerts then, and I remember expressing to him that, I think your hall is more suitable for a more intimate setting where, people can really just come up to the stage. Little
off piece from what we've been discussing so far. But, little birdie tells me you're also a part-time model on the side. Am I right
Is this so a very, very funny way it all started, dude. So Kalpadruma came out with another men's catalog. It was called Man and Beyond. I think one of my friends was shooting for the whole ad thing. And well, apparently she was asked to find someone who wears kurtas a lot. So she calls me up and was like, "Hey Sumesh, you wear a lot of kurtas, no? Okay, keep yourself free like next week." I'm like, yeah, okay, fine.
Oh man.
And that's when I learned after a week. When she calls me and she's like, "We're going to Pollachi, we're going to shoot for Kalpadruma. I want you to model." I'm like, "Huh? Yeah, okay, what?" So I'm this guy who would never say no to anything, okay? But please don't capitalize on that. But what I'm trying to...
Did you end up doing any catwalks anywhere?
No, not I can think of. No, I haven't. No catwalks.
People have differing practice routines. What does a Sumesh Narayanan practice session look like? What sort of things do you run through? How regular would you practice? That sort of thing.
The thing is, it keeps changing all the time, because when I was young, say when I was prepping up for my Arangetram maybe about 14, 15 years ago, it was way different. It was a very strict, disciplined practice routine that I had every day. And it was very simple. Just play every day. It was very important to just play every day because consistency was key. And 5 years after that, I think when I slowly started playing concerts here and there, it was more concert oriented. The practice was more concert oriented. Start understanding kritis that were normally sung, start understanding ways to play for a kriti, start expanding your repertoire, start learning kritis, not just to play for them, but really just learning the kritis. As you don't have to sing them really well, but you need to know what the kriti is and you need to know what comes after. And especially as a mridangist, those specific areas like, for example, Chittaswaram, Adatala Varnams, a lot of these technically sound compositions sort of, own it because it's really good when you're along with it as opposed to just winging it. Most of my practice was listening, if I can say that. You can fall into that pit of not knowing what to practice and just keep playing. I think it's what you practice and how you practice and how it helps your musical vocabulary. I do consider my concerts as practice sessions. A lot of people think it doesn't make sense, but to me, it makes most sense.
How busy is your performing life?
So off season, I think obviously the Carnatic concerts, the count comes down, obviously. But I do have, so I play for this band called Indo Soul. And these guys are a bunch of amazing musicians, amazing guys. Been with them for about 8 years. We all have classical roots, apart from 3 of the band members who have their roots in rock and pop and funk and all that. So it's a nice amalgamation of, Western trained musicians and Indian classically trained musicians. I am a little tied up with their concerts off season. We have a bunch of these corporate events going on. We have a bunch of these public and private events going on. And we have a fair bit of following in Chennai, which is awesome because everybody is from Chennai and Indo Soul is kind of a Madras band. And since it's also Carnatic, we also have a very healthy cross-pollination. A lot of Carnatic listeners also come listen to the band. A lot of the band's fans also start listening to Carnatic music and start appreciating what it is and what they understand out of it. Normally off season would be about, say, 5-6 concerts a month.
Okay.
Which
so
is
fairly busy.
Every weekend. Yeah, fairly busy. I mean, 5-6 concerts a month as opposed to 42 during season.
Okay.
Sumesh, you touched on a mridangist having to learn kritis or at least knowing the basis of kritis. So I was just wondering, what's your in terms of accompaniment? How do you view accompaniment? What's your thought process of trying to accompany a song?
I always feel when I go to a stage, there are no individuals here, right? There's no 4 people, there's no 5 people on stage. It's the music that comes out. The foremost thing is to not stand out when it's not needed. But on the same note, I don't like, this hierarchy, man. It's not like you can sing without the mridangam. You can, but I can also play without the voice. It's not that kind of a battle that we're fighting here. It's about the musical input that is needed and where it's most needed. More importantly, where it's not needed. For me, I think it's most about understanding the mood on stage and try and blend with it as much as possible and not be mud and water.
So your favorite venue to perform at?
Any temple.
Love it.
One mridangist from the past you would want to watch play live?
Raghu sir!
Most memorable concert till date?
This is a hard one.
Tiruvarur, for a lot of reasons.
Could you just explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, so the one with Abhishek Raghuram and Kunakudi Balamurali Krishna with Parur Ananthakrishnan and Ghatam Karthik in Tiruvarur, obviously for the reasons stated above, and because there was a lot of musicians in the crowd, including my Vadyar. And it was star-studded on and off stage.
Kucchi or Kappi?
Kappi.
We'll go with that.
That's a good answer. That's the correct answer.
The one Taniyavartanam that you can listen to over and over and over again.
There was this album called what's it called? Tala Bhakti of Vadyar, of Sirs, that was released in the early 80s. Oh man, he's played some stuff there that I don't think anyone else under the sky can do it.
Check it out to anyone that's listening to this.
Favorite Nade?
Mr. Nade.
Most embarrassing moment on stage?
So there was this one time when I sort of stopped playing because my mic wasn't working. And in hindsight, I think that's a very stupid thing to do. And I was also in the amidst a great legendary artist that day. And he sort of schooled me on stage. So
okay.
I wish I hadn't done, because I was wrong. I was clearly wrong. And I didn't mean to do it, but I just did it. I don't know why. Don't ask me why. But yeah, that was quite embarrassing.
Early morning practice or late night practice?
Late night practice, bro.
One place you'd love to go to that you haven't been to yet?
Like just generally in the world?
Yeah.
Switzerland.
Best piece of advice you've received?
My dad always keeps saying this one line, and I think that's probably the motto of my, like sort of, he always says, he advises me to never say no to knowledge and take it as it comes.
Favorite movie of all time?
Yeah,
Shawshank
Redemption.
Oh, love. Great choice.
Yeah, man.
Classic choice. Which 3 co-artists would you take with you on a road trip?
Oh, Sumesh Narayanan for sure. Wait, am I allowed to say 3 vocalists, or does it have to be like a concert lineup? Or
No. It can be anyone. Just 3 mates from the music fraternity.
Oh, 3 mates. Oh, okay. This is tough, man.
You're gonna get.
Don't upset people.
30 very jealous musicians now.
Okay. I think Ashwath, Bharat, and Ritvik. Because Ritvik knows the best places to eat, right? Bharat can just drop pearls of wisdom now and then. And Ashwath is just good company, man.
Do you use Instagram or Facebook more?
Instagram. I'm out of Facebook.
One instrument other than the mridangam that you'd like to learn?
I've always been fancied by the Nadaswaram.
Ah, okay.
Nice.
Because I feel the control. I've also been told that it's extremely intricate to understand the modulation and to be able to bring it out. So that's kind of challenging. So,
one Indian festival you look forward to?
That I've been a part of, that I want to be a part of?
Yeah.
Maybe the NH7 Weekender. The NH7 is the National Highway 7 that runs across the country. Okay. And so Bacardi hosts this festival, which is called the Weekender. And you have a bunch of bands just playing and an extremely amazing crowd.
Rava topi or paste topi?
Rava, dude. Any day. I don't use paste.
No way. Really?
I've always used rubber. Yeah, I've always used rubber. Maybe once or twice, maybe because I was having multiple sound checks. So I hate this whole idea of, not that I'm against sound check, but you know how it is tough for a rubber mridangist to check sound and have to start a concert in like half an hour after the sound check is done.
Right.
It's just hard, because now for the sound check you'll have to wait till the topi is nalla yarangified, and then it produces that bass tone. And then once you take off the rubber, the skin is still wet and it's still moist, and it's not going to sound as good when you come back in half an hour and you put the rubber again. It's just going to bring in so many problems. And I'm personally not a big fan of that. So Adhika, what I do is, when I know there's going to be a sound check, and when I know that particular mridangam isn't going to be, really friendly with this kind of a situation, I carry another mridangam that is seasoned to a paste topi. So I think that's mostly my constraint with using rubber. But given a choice, rubber, like any day, without a doubt.
Wow, that's really interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Favorite place to eat out in Chennai?
It has to be Sangeeta, because like I'm gonna have South Indian food in Chennai, because I think that's the only place you get really, really good South Indian food. And I think Sangeeta, the ghee roast and the coffee, there's just amazing.
Yeah. It's lunchtime here. Can we start? Can we not do this? I think we'll have to wrap up quickly. So
one superpower you'd like to have?
I catch a cold quite often.
I was not expecting that answer. But yeah, go on.
I mean, I thought about it and I was like, what the hell? I mean, if I really want a superpower, then that's what it's going to be. I mean, I catch a cold. I'm quite sensitive to pollen and dust and all that. So it's just, you just invariably at any given point, time of the year, I think you'll find me sneezing with a tissue or whatever. So I think my superpower would be to ask for the power to be immune from cold.
Sachin Tendulkar or Virat Kohli?
Sachin, dude.
And last, but this is very on point with what you said earlier, your favorite pop artist of all time?
So I have 3 answers. Okay. James Brown, because there's only one James Brown in the entirety of human history. Michael Jackson, because Michael Jackson got a name after James Brown, and that's something.
Yeah.
And Stevie Wonder, because he's just incredible. Stevie Wonder is like, I know he's not pop, but what the hell?
Yeah, what the hell? We can just call it world music, you know. So this is one thing that you touched on earlier, and I just thought it's really good point to explore before we kind of look to wrap up today, is the importance of dynamics when playing mridangam. So like, you know, where do you look to play loud? How do you know when to play soft? And how do youngsters and students of the art, how can they develop their dynamics? Because it's one of those words that people throw around so much, right? Develop your dynamics. So how does one go about this from a percussion standpoint?
I don't really know how one goes about it, but I will share stuff that, you know, I've pondered about over the years. And there are a lot of things that you sort of need to understand about the instrument. It's very similar to, you know, the relationship between the bow and the violin. And, you know, how if you press it even a tad too hard, then you start to get the screeching sound, right? So sort of like that with the mridangam. The left side, or the toppi, is innately more robust, more vibrant than the right side. It's just louder than the right. There are very, very few people who have for a right-hander, I mean, who have the right side, you know, starting to be louder than the left side. It's very few cases that happens, because the left, the mridangam, the sound that it produces on either side, I think the left side, at least for me, I've always felt that my left side was a lot louder than the right. And so I started paying attention to that kind of dynamics in sort of, you know, bettering myself. It's not just with content, obviously clarity, speed, and, you know, control, all that matters, but with dynamics as the subject. I think for me, it's always it's still a challenge to find the right balance, you know, between the left and the right side, and to better the relationship with the output, with the sound output as a whole. You should never be listening to the left and the right as left and the right of the mridangam, but should be able to listen to the mridangam. And I think that is one thing that I've learned from the greats, the giants. Take everyone. I'm not even talking about one person. I'm talking about all of them who lived during the 80s, or, you know, who belong to like, you know, the golden era of Carnatic music. I think all of these mridangists mastered the art of balance. Yeah. And it was just there. It was just prevalent throughout, like transcending through schools, through, you know, Kappi mridangam, Kucchi mridangam. It doesn't matter. The balance was intact. And I'm sort of very curious to know if it was a technique, if it was a practice regime that they followed to be able to, you know, master this aesthetic. So that's also one of the more interesting points that, you know, I've always thought about. It's not just content or rudiments or, you know, fingering techniques or those things are physical, right? Like they're like tangible. You can say, You can teach someone to play the dum a different way. You can teach someone, you can point out a certain stroke being struck wrong, and all of these are tangible. There are things that you can note, but how are you expecting someone to understand dynamics when you explain dynamics in another language that is not, you can't really explain dynamics in words, right?
I wonder how much of it is to do with, I mean, I'm just thinking out loud here based on what you've said, like how much of it is to do with the size of, this is slightly off point, the size of families that people had before were much larger. So people would have like 5, 6 children or whatever. And within that family, if you had a musical family, everyone's always, like take Ramana Krishnan's family, for example. So there were 2 mridangists, there was a violinist, I think, who passed away quite young, and Ramana Krishnan. So you had this sort of setup where everyone was interacting with each other. So you had mridangam, you had like a mini kacheri going on at home where everyone could interact and get a feel for what it was like to play 4 songs for in that setting. Whereas now, I don't know, I feel, at least from the standpoint here and from living outside of India, like when you have your party class and stuff, I get very little chance to interact with like percussionists, and like, I spend time practicing with them. And in the same way, percussionists are sort of practicing alone. So unless you're on that stage and you get to meet, you miss that aspect of what it is to bring the music together. So I don't know whether that,
or I don't know if it was as simple as back then there were certain things that they hailed as really, really good characteristics of a good mridangist, and today it's all changed, and we're just looking for korves and different other stuff to play. But back then, every mridangam sounded like it was in the best shape that you could find. The sound that came out of it, the toppi sound that nobody can bring today. I mean, apart from a handful of people. For me, it is like Parni toppi Mari. We cannot find a toppi for ages to come. And Maniyar's clarity, the sound that how well his mridangam, the shruti of his mridangam was so in line with the tambura. And how Raghu sir's meet chap serradhu. There are so many intricate aspects to a mridangam that not many people know. Have we sort of drifted from what that mattered in a mridangam, the characteristics that mattered in a mridangist and in a mridangam about 40 years ago, to what matters now? I heard a recording of Maniyar's speech, not his talking. Not his playing. So he talks about the greatness of Dakshinamurti Pillai. And he goes on to say that Dakshinamurti Pillai was not just a profound and an incredible Ganjira artist, but he was also really, really good at the mridangam. He goes on to say, Dakshinamurti Pillai valku appadi or kai that when he plays the mridangam and the balance and the dum or chap, vera onnum vasikka mattar. He doesn't play korves or fancy patterns or not like, incredible speeds or nothing of that sort. It was a sheer balance that he produced out of the mridangam. He literally says this. Maniyar literally says this. Like, or toppi or chap appadi potarna. Maniyar also, goes on to say he was supposed to catch a train that night. And because Dakshinamurti Pillai started playing the mridangam, he lost, track of time. He was just like spellbound in his playing and he missed his train. And he goes on to say all of this. So, which makes me think it's Maniyar, the greatest of the great that we hail today. He understands, or in his view, he thought that korve vasikardu, playing faster, speed, all of these are very important traits. They're important aspects of mridangam playing. But the life really, the whole essence of it all lies in the balance and in your rapport with the mridangam. When the mridangam and you become one, right? And when the mridangam literally starts talking and the way it conveys stuff that you feel. And I think that's true mastery. And that's extremely difficult.
Sumesh, we've heard that you do a mean impressions rather of several Carnatic artists.
Like any other impression artist, I also have like like a few that I'm really good at. I think I started, the first person I ever sort of impersonate was Dorai sir, Guru Dorai sir.
Okay. Nice. Okay.
And that happened because I had a direct conversation with him in one of our festival events, and he wanted a cup of coffee. So the whole gist is he wanted a cup of coffee right before the concert started. So it was a very simple conversation, but is beautiful, man. So that's how I started speaking like Dore sir. So basically the whole situation became, was sort of adapted into my repertoire. So and obviously he went on to speak more that evening because he was also the chief guest. So yeah, I think Dore sir, one of the, like, I adore him, man. So obviously all of the people that I have on my list, but yes, I started speaking like Dore sir first. Who else? A little bit of PS and Mama. I can do a Ramakrishnan Murthy over a call kind of a voice.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
like imagine Ramakrishnan Murthy calling me for a concert. Okay, that's the whole situation. So obviously impressions and being able to impersonate someone is a talent, right? So I've always felt all of these talents have a very fundamental similarity in nature. You start paying attention to aesthetics as opposed to content. It's not like you say a few words and I say the same few words. I'm not going to sound like you. So I've always felt that even while playing mridangam or singing or dancing or art form or anything, if you are able to, and there's a big conversation / argument / discussion about emulation, imitation, being influenced, being inspired. All of these things have a very fine line separating what they mean, right? You can imitate someone. It's harder to emulate someone. It's even harder to be influenced by someone. So the hardest thing, I think, is also being inspired by someone, because you need to have so much to be able to have that kind of an influence on someone else.
Do you feel is it a progression? So you gave a nice analogy there, like impression, then incorporation, and then taking sort of like inspiration from someone. Is it a progression? Do you start off aping somebody, like, and then you like end up refining it and taking the bits that you feel?
Okay, that's the first time I've said something like that to anyone, and now that I hear it back, I think that's a nice progression to do, right? Like, first you imitate someone. You literally just imitate. You like, maybe you like dress like them, maybe you talk like them, maybe you move like them, and from there you start emulating it. You adore them so much, you admire them, you're so influenced by their practices, and you would love to be them or someone like them in the future. So you start just, like, it's almost like a cult. And then when you start emulating them is when you understand that itself is actually becoming a part of you. It's just started to become a part of you. Influence, I think, is the next step, where your actions are influenced by who you adore, admire, and look up to. And slowly, in my case, slowly my musicality changed. The stuff that I listen to changed. The stuff that I look for when I listen to something changed. The stuff that even came out of me when I was playing in a concert, or it can be as specific as a taniya avardhanam, a korve, or a pattern, or as generic and vast as just the understanding of the whole art form itself. So I think that is the third step. And the fourth most important and beautiful revelation of all is when you're inspired finally by that person. So that inspiration finally hits you so hard, and you understand that it's not just imitating or emulating or being blown away by one's whatever it is that you're blown away by. I think being inspired is to sort of make all of this your own, and have like your own stamp to it when it comes out. There is this really, really beautiful word in Tamil. It's called brahmikardal, right? It literally means being blown away, as far as I know. But it's not just being blown away. It's not just that much to it. It's so much more. It's the after process, the aftermath, so to speak, of the whole being blown away thing, right? You can be blown away. You can go to a concert, be blown away by the concert, and walk back home and not think about it. That's not what I'm talking about. It's what that doesn't make you sleep. If you feel good about it, you don't know why you feel good about it. You don't know how you want to prolong this. It's just fun. So I'm saying
Sumesh,
that is
I just want to jump in there. I think an experience that I have that you're describing is when I listened to one of your tanis for Ramakrishna Murthy with Kamalikaran on violin for Kalyani. It's on your YouTube channel. That's where I got it from. That really, really, like for a good 3 or 4 weeks. This was during my exam term I think in my second year of university. As you say, when you were saying that, I was like, oh, that's an experience I had. your
thanks,
playing.
man. That makes me feel really, really good. Thanks.
Because a Kappi mudde through a good mic with an amazing topi is just, it's something different. It's really something
different. So now that you brought an instance up, my transformation, or rather transition into Kappi, was because I was having sleepless nights after I listened to Raghu sir play. I mean, not that I haven't heard him play before, but there was this phase, man. There was this, I don't know, probably 2010, and between 2010 and 2014, I think, maybe 3 or 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
That chunk, I don't know what got into me. I just started listening to Raghu sir. It was just a normal week, I guess, how it all started, and then it just started growing on me, dude. I used to listen to 10 Raghu sir concerts every day. At one point, I think I downloaded everything that was available on Sangeeta Priya. I used to go to Academy, check out the archives of only Raghu sir. I went to sir. I asked him. I expressed my interest to play in a Kappi mridangam, and then I changed all my Kucchi motifs in the Kappi, and then I started playing. I started playing like Raghu sir. I imitated him. I played all of his choreographies. I even changed my num pattern to suit his num pattern. So I started playing, striking the mridangam, like the finger strokes would almost started to, mimic his. And I also used to hunch a little on the. It's really weird, dude. Like starting phase.
I totally understand. Really, totally understand.
I mean, it's fun. It's quite fun to think about it all now. But back then it was like, dude, this is all what I want. If I want to play mridangam, this is what it's going to be. And this is where I want to get.
Right.
And this is the level of, this is how deep I want to go into the art. Yeah, there was that point where it's just that, man.
Did you ever meet him?
No, I've never seen him in person. So all my reference, everything of Raghu sir is his photos, his videos, his whatever, his documentaries, that's it. And what people speak of him. Yeah, so, I mean, I don't want to speak more of the already unfortunate situation that's just prevailing all over the world. I'm sure all of us know what's going on. But it's also really hard to stay motivated. This comes from personal experience. And also to sort of, understand how we take things for granted given this situation. As far as Madras is concerned, I know a lot of these NGOs that are going around and feeding the homeless, and even the stray dogs in Chennai. I know a bunch of my friends who just buy these buy basic dog food and just go around feeding the dogs, feeding the homeless. I know a couple of people who spend a lot of time and effort and money to sort of identify homeless people who are sort of extremely helpless in this situation, and just extend a helping hand. It doesn't take much at all. We'll definitely see this through, but also try and learn from it what we can after all of this done, and not just not just forget it like just another thing. And it's important to understanding what went wrong and not to repeat that again. So
yeah,
I mean, with most things in life. Yeah.